I once sat in a hospital waiting room next to a man named Gerald, who was 69 at the time. He was flipping through a magazine, and I noticed the puzzled look on his face. The article he was reading talked about how to use a new phone app for staying in touch with family. He sighed, closed the magazine, and quietly said to me, "I guess that's just not for people my age." That single moment hit me like a wave. Here was a brilliant man. He had been a high school math teacher for over 30 years, now convinced that learning something new just wasn't feasible anymore. It was a flash of insight for me. So many of us stop believing in our ability to grow and adapt after a certain birthday, and we pay a huge price in lost opportunities and fading self-confidence. It's not just about missing out on the latest technological tools or feeling left behind. It's about our sense of identity and purpose. Learning keeps us engaged, vibrant, and connected. And when we shut that door, intentionally or not, it can feel like a slow retreat from life. In fact, I've seen people in their 70s and 80s who still learn a new craft, pick up a musical instrument, or become expert gardeners. Yet I've also met folks in their mid-60s who believe it's too late. That gap between those who keep discovering and those who give up is heartbreaking. Because if we don't address this, we risk losing not just knowledge, but also the spark that makes each day worth living. In the next few minutes, we're going to uncover 5 of the most common learning mistakes people make after age 65. Each one is a silent thief of our potential. By the end, you'll see exactly how to avoid or correct these mistakes, so you can stay mentally active, pursue new interests, and feel a renewed sense of possibility about the future. I'm going to share simple, practical steps grounded in what doctors and specialists are finally recognizing about brain health and lifelong learning. These aren't just theories. I've witnessed them transform everyday seniors who feared they'd lost their chance to grow, only to discover they had more potential than they ever imagined. Most importantly, I promise you this: if you stay until the very last point, you'll learn about a simple yet powerful approach almost no one talks about. Something so straightforward that it often gets overlooked, but it can drastically boost your ability to keep learning at any age. Imagine what life could be like a few months from now if you truly believed in your own capacity to master new skills, remember details better, and feel proud of your progress instead of frustrated by limitations. That's the transformation we're aiming for here. After decades of observing how people over 65 either thrive in their mental pursuits or withdraw and settle into limiting beliefs, I've realized that these 5 mistakes are surprisingly universal. They quietly undermine our willingness to try new things and hamper our ability to absorb information. But the good news is that once you know what they are and how to tackle them, you'll have a clear path forward. This information isn't just my opinion. It's echoed by forward-thinking research on aging and cognitive function that highlights how a shift in perspective can trigger remarkable changes in our brains. Before we dive into the details, I want to invite you to stay connected by subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss any new videos. And if you find this content helpful, please type 1 in the comments. If you feel it doesn't resonate, type 0 to let me know, so I can keep refining what I share with you. Every bit of feedback helps. Now let's get started on the first major mistake, one that most seniors don't even realize they're making until it's taken a real toll on their confidence. The first learning mistake many make after 65 is a hidden assumption that old dogs can't learn new tricks. Most people say it with a chuckle, as if it's an innocent phrase, but it's actually a bold statement that challenges our ability to adapt. Too many seniors genuinely believe this myth, thinking their brains are essentially locked in place once they pass retirement age. The truth? The mind remains remarkably flexible well into our later years, especially when we give it the right conditions. Think about Margaret, a 76-year-old retired accountant who spent decades crunching numbers but never touched a paintbrush in her life. She had a quiet yearning to try watercolor painting, yet every time she walked by an art supply store, she'd sigh and think, "I'm too old to start a new hobby like this now." The misconception is that learning new skills demands some sort of innate young brain. But in reality, scientists have shown that even seniors in their 80s form new neural connections when they challenge themselves in creative ways. So here's the surprising insight. We often sabotage our own attempts at learning before we even start. It's like telling yourself you've already failed, so there's no use trying. But the moment Margaret finally said, "Why not?" and enrolled in a beginner watercolor class, she discovered a part of herself she never knew existed. 4 months later, she exhibited two of her paintings in a local community center. The sense of accomplishment lit her up from the inside out. If you find yourself thinking, "I'm too old for that," I encourage you to flip the script. Start small. Pick one thing you've always been curious about, like learning to grow succulents or mastering basic smartphone photography, and give yourself permission to be a beginner again. Yes, you might feel awkward at first, but every single step forward is proof that your mind is alive and capable. The emotional benefit is huge. It reinstills a sense of possibility and reminds you that life can still hold fresh surprises. Now, before we move on, consider this. The best antidote to the old dogs can't learn new tricks belief is direct evidence that you can and do learn new things. So commit to just one micro challenge this week. Maybe watch a tutorial on something you know nothing about. Or ask a friend to show you how to set up a new app on your phone. It's in that first step that a whole new world can open up. And that leads us to the second major mistake, which builds on this theme of underestimating ourselves. The second learning mistake is assuming memory decline makes learning pointless. Many seniors think, why bother memorizing anything when I'll just forget it anyway? This is the common misconception that memory automatically tanks after 65, leaving us powerless. A lot of people don't realize that memory can be maintained and even improved with the right kind of mental exercise, just like muscles respond to physical exercise. Take Robert, who's 72, for example. He used to introduce himself as the forgetful man because he would frequently misplace his keys and struggle to recall names at his church's social gatherings. He felt embarrassed and believed he was losing his mind. But an expert on senior cognitive health suggested something surprising: a simple daily practice of mental association. Instead of just trying to recall random pieces of information, Robert began linking names to imagery. For example, if he met a woman named Lily, he'd visualize a flower in her hand. It seemed too basic at first, but soon he was remembering details far more efficiently than before. The actionable step here is to adopt a memory-friendly practice. This could be mnemonic devices, simple word associations, or even writing things down in a dedicated learning journal. People often think writing things down is a crutch, but it's actually a powerful tool to help you synthesize information. And the emotional benefit? You regain trust in your own mind. The fear of constantly forgetting loosens its grip when you have a strategy that works. Think about how liberating it is to recall someone's name after meeting them only once, or to watch a tutorial on planting tomatoes and actually remember the steps. That's not just a matter of pride, it's a gateway to feeling independent and capable. Memory training isn't about turning you into a genius overnight. It's about giving you back the sense that your mind is still yours to shape. If you're finding these first two insights helpful, please leave a 2 in the comments to show you're still here and engaged. And if you haven't yet done so, I'd love for you to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you'll never miss any new tips on keeping your mind and body active. Now let's move on to the third mistake, which often hides behind well-intentioned advice from friends and family. The third mistake is believing that formal classes are the only valid way to learn. Many people over 65 who do want to keep learning automatically assume, I have to enroll in a class, sign up for a university extension, or attend some formal course. While traditional classes can be wonderful, especially for meeting new people, they're not the sole path to becoming more skilled or more knowledgeable. In fact, some of the best learning happens informally, through curiosity-driven exploration, hands-on practice, and real-life problem-solving. Consider Angela, age 80, who was determined to better understand her hearing aids. The local community center offered a 4-week course on senior technology, which was fairly general. Instead of waiting for the next semester, Angela chose a different route. She found an online forum where other seniors discussed hearing aid models, troubleshooting tips, and experiences with different brands. Angela discovered a wealth of information from fellow seniors all over the country, And within 2 weeks, she was not only managing her hearing aids better, but also helping newer members with the same issues she'd recently tackled. The surprising truth here is that we learn best when we're motivated by genuine interest or necessity, not just because a curriculum says so. Formal classes can be a great boost, but they can also be rigid, slow, or too broad for your immediate needs. Self-directed learning, using resources like online videos, library books, local experts, and community discussions, can be more dynamic and tailored to your interests. To put this into action, think about one skill or subject you've been curious about. Instead of just signing up for a random course that starts months from now, see if you can find free resources or online communities dedicated to that very topic. It might be something like learning to knit, improving your balance through specific exercises, or even picking up a new language. By simply following your curiosity, you become your own teacher. The emotional payoff is a sense of empowerment. You realize you don't have to wait for permission or an official schedule to expand your mind, and that is a freeing feeling, knowing that knowledge is within your reach anytime you decide to go for it. So many seniors have shared with me that this realization alone opens doors they never even knew were there. With that in mind, let's transition to mistake number 4, which has to do with how we handle frustration when new skills don't come easily. The fourth mistake is letting temporary setbacks confirm a negative identity. Here's the bold statement. Just because you struggle with a skill early on doesn't mean you're too old, not smart, or just not cut out for it. One of the biggest misconceptions is that if you're not picking something up quickly, it's a sign of inevitable age-related decline. But the truth is that all learning, at any age, involves hitting stumbling blocks. Let me share Leonard's story. He was 67 when he decided to learn basic computer coding to build a simple website for his community gardening group. Everyone around him thought it was an odd choice. And sure enough, in the first few weeks, Leonard was baffled by technical terms, software bugs, and lines of code that made no sense. He was on the verge of quitting, convinced his brain wasn't young enough to handle this new field. But an online mentor told him, "Mistakes aren't a sign of failure. They're proof you're trying." That one line stuck. Leonard went on to create the website, which is now the go-to resource for dozens of local gardeners. The surprising insight here is that seniors often internalize mistakes more deeply because they see them as confirmation of fears about aging. But what if each mistake is actually just a rung on the ladder of learning? The practical advice: reframe every error or misunderstanding as normal feedback. The next time you try to learn something and hit a roadblock, pause and say, "That's interesting. Now I know one more way it doesn't work, and I can try something else." This shift in perspective can stop frustration from turning into self-doubt. The emotional benefit of adopting this mindset is huge. It preserves your self-esteem and keeps you moving forward rather than giving up. And that sense of resilience, the belief that you can keep going despite challenges, spills over into other parts of life. You might start feeling more confident about socializing, volunteering, or tackling tasks you previously avoided. If you're still with me, please drop a 4 in the comments to show you're following along. And remember, if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend doing so now. We've covered 4 major learning mistakes, and the 5th one might actually be the easiest to fix but can bring some of the biggest rewards. Let's delve right into it. The 5th learning mistake is failing to celebrate small victories. Most people focus so heavily on what they still need to learn or the skills they haven't mastered that they never pause to appreciate incremental progress. This belief that only the final result matters can drain your motivation. But the reality is that celebrating each milestone, a new word learned in a foreign language, an upgraded computer skill, or even the ability to remember 3 new people's names, fuels your drive to keep going. I recall Teresa, who's 70, and decided to learn meditation techniques to improve her sleep. At first, she expected immediate results, hoping she'd transform into a calm, well-rested person overnight. When that didn't happen, she got frustrated. But a coach advised her to track tiny progress markers. Instead of looking for radical overnight changes, Teresa wrote down small wins each evening. Fell asleep 10 minutes faster than usual. Felt a moment of deep calm this afternoon. Or Made it through a session without my mind wandering too far. Over a few weeks of seeing these documented mini-successes built her confidence. She realized she was steadily improving. That momentum led her to stick with the practice long enough to experience the bigger payoff. Consistently better nights of rest. Here's the practical step. Keep a simple learning log. It might be a small notebook or a file on your phone or computer. Every day, note one small achievement or insight. Maybe you finished a chapter in a book, remembered a new workout routine, or experimented with a new recipe successfully. Each entry is proof that you're actively learning and growing, and it helps combat the discouraging narrative that nothing's changing. Emotionally, this approach nurtures hope. You see your capability in real, undeniable terms. Instead of fixating on what's not perfect yet, you feed your motivation by acknowledging what's already improved. Over time, these small victories accumulate into a profound transformation, fueling you to keep expanding your mind and trying new things, even things you never envisioned doing. Now that you've seen the 5 major mistakes people make when trying to learn after 65, let's step back and see how they fit together. We talked about the trap of thinking old dogs can't learn new tricks. The tendency to assume memory decline makes learning pointless, relying too heavily on formal classes, letting temporary setbacks define who we are, and neglecting to celebrate small victories. Each of these pitfalls can hold you back, but once you recognize them, they're surprisingly easy to address. At this point, you might be feeling a surge of excitement or maybe a sense of relief. Perhaps you see yourself applying these ideas, envisioning a future where you engage your curiosity, keep your memory sharp, and try new adventures like learning a new skill or hobby. Imagine looking back a few months from now and saying, I can't believe I almost gave up on learning because of these simple misconceptions. That's the transformation we're aiming for. The key is to take action soon, before the usual doubts or daily distractions seep in. If you wait too long, the momentum might fade, and old habits could creep back in. So think about a specific example in your own life. Maybe it's a language app you've been hesitant to try, a local history club you're interested in joining, or that stack of how-to guides you've been collecting. Pick one concrete step you can take today or tomorrow. Sign up, download, ask for help, or dive into a tutorial. It also helps to visualize yourself in a day in the life after making these changes. Picture waking up feeling mentally sharp, excited to tackle a new reading assignment or practice a new skill. Picture meeting your friends or family, telling them about the fascinating things you've discovered, rather than complaining about how tough technology or new hobbies can be. That's the power of lifelong learning. It breathes energy into every aspect of your day. If there's one point that resonated with you the most, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Maybe it was the idea that setbacks aren't failures, or the notion that your memory can still get stronger with simple techniques. Sharing your thoughts not only helps you reflect, but also inspires others who might read your comment and realize they're not alone. And now I'd like to invite you to act on a multi-layered call to action. First, leave a comment about the insight you plan to implement. Next, share this video with a friend or loved one who might need a little encouragement to keep learning. Then, if you haven't already, please like this video and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on. Each step is a small commitment that reinforces your identity as a learner, someone who embraces new information and acts on it. Thank you for spending your time with me today. Remember, it's never truly too late to discover something new, and every small victory paves the way for greater accomplishments. You have more power than you might realize to shape your own future. So stay curious, stay open, and keep learning. I can't wait to hear about your progress, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.